Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. It's Freaky Friday. We're here with Dr. Jim, and I have to make a few apologies and announcements. First off, I had the wrong time set for this stream. I just realized I had 1:30, and it is, in fact, 11:44. So something's going on with Pat Flynn today. I don't know what.
It's Friday, man. It's party day.
Yeah, so sorry if people just, carved out a block of time 2 hours from now, but the party starts right now. The free will thing I'm going to do, I've had to push that back twice now. First, because there was a rummage sale in our neighborhood, and I'm not going to get into details about that. It's not important. Second, because I didn't think Jim would be here today. And then he texted me, and I said, stop everything. Right. We've got to do our Freaky Friday Q&A. So welcome, everybody. We welcome your questions for conversation. Jim and I are going to chat for a little bit, and then we'll turn and answer whatever questions you send our way. All is fair game here on Freaky Friday. Fitness, philosophy, anything you want to talk about, aliens, exotic cats, bring the heat. So, Jim, man, how you doing?
Have we told the audience that I'm back in the lizard game?
Please.
I don't know if we mentioned.
No, I don't think we have, right?
Yeah, so my son Jack has bought a bearded dragon. His name is Chancho in honor of the character in the Nacho Libre classic film. And so far he has proven to be a far superior pet to the chameleon. So we may have achieved lizard happiness finally in the Madden household.
So he is, what kind of beast is he again?
He's a bearded dragon.
And what's the deal with those things? Poisonous, deadly?
No, they're desert. They're desert dwellers,
okay.
Which makes life much easier. Just pretty much need to keep them hot, right? And they occasionally drink, right? And they eat. They're omnivorous, which chameleons are supposed to be. But this guy actually eats his veggies, which is a plus, right? So he gets bugs every other day and a salad every other day. So he's a good eater. Likes to be handled, which is very different from the chameleon, which hates to be handled. Right.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
So my son loves lizards, and he wants one. Would you say this is a better pet than the chameleon?
I think of the reptiles my children have owned, and there have been a good number of them. The bearded dragon is the superior pet.
Yeah, interesting.
So when I have my morning coffee now, when it's warm out, I literally get up. Grab the bearded dragon out of his cage, and I put him on a cage we have in the front porch so he can sit and sun himself in the morning sun, right? He's that easy to handle, right? And when he eats his bugs, we just let him loose in the kitchen and let him chase him around the kitchen.
Yeah.
And it's no problem getting him back in the cage and stuff like that. Yeah. It's a fun pet. Yeah. So
that's good to know, because I'm kind of petted out right now. After 10 years of a Saint Bernard, we're after Lola goes, God rest her. She's a wonderful. She's a wonderful,
demanding spouse.
Exceedingly demanding, sloppy,
high maintenance,
slobbery, high maintenance. Ruins your festivals. All that sort of honestly, if you take the sort of montage scene from Beethoven, if anyone's seen that movie, that's not highly inaccurate. It's really not of our animals. She's a monster, a lovable monster. So we're thinking we were going to take it easy on the whole pet thing, because she is. For a Saint Bernard, she's 11 now, which is way up there for a Saint Bernard. So we've taken good care of her. She's doing well. But yeah. So before we get to questions,
hopefully when Lola goes, you won't have to do it yourself the way I did with Bob. Because that was much more difficult process. So seek professional help with that. Right?
Not all of us have the constitution of Jim Madden.
Yeah. Well, and there's been a Saint Bernard and a chameleon. Yeah.
Right. Speaking of building a hardy constitution, how was your workout today? What'd you do for your training?
Good. I was going to train jiu-jitsu this morning for my workout. But just logistics. So my twins who are in high school are graduating tomorrow, and my oldest son's home on leave from the Marine Corps, and so there's stuff going on with that, and then the other kids have things going on. So it's very crazy. So I did not have access to a vehicle this morning. So I decided to do some kettlebell pressing instead, which went rather well. So yeah.
So we both did pressing today. Probably different because mine was a bit. I've been really enjoying these sort of pause sets where I'll do a set of 8 to 12 with a fairly heavy weight for that range.
Yep.
Take about just a 10 to 15-second pause, then try and do another set at a quicker tempo. Feels
Nice.
good. Just
Yeah, you've done that before too.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
cycle, I cycle my scheme, if you will. So I'm back on that type of scheme, and
Yeah.
feels good, efficient. Yeah.
Today was my one arm press test day, is what I did
Mhm.
from the long range program I've done for the Alec, our friend Alec. And actually, he just messaged me for the show. He wants to do something next week, so we'll
Oh, good.
get the three of us. I think on his thing, but
Okay, good.
we
So
could
yeah,
do a simulcast, right?
yeah.
But anyway, so and I went from with the 40 kg when I started this program, I got stuffed on my left arm and got an ugly single on the right arm. Today I did a clean single left and three nice presses on the right. So I went from 0-1 to 1-3.
And so
Yes.
the gentle listeners understand that is serious business for
Yeah.
Jim's, size, especially how
Yeah.
lean you are.
Yeah.
I've never pressed a 40
Yeah.
kilograms. So,
Yeah.
we were talking about this in Messenger. It's
Yeah.
really the ratio that's impressive for me.
Yeah.
Like it's never impressive when some like 300 plus pound fat tank,
Yeah.
forgive me, like presses a 48 kilogram kettle. It's just
Yeah.
not that impressive, right? But when
Right.
a guy who's, quite lean like
Yeah.
you are is pressing that serious weight, that takes
Yeah.
dedication, skill, and
The
technique.
Pavel's old standard from Enter the Kettlebell is you got to get to press the kettlebell closest to half your body weight is the excellent, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm usually somewhere in the 180s, and so the 40 kg would be my kettlebell is pretty close to that, right?
Yep.
And so at least so got a triple. So I think probably if I stick with this, I'm looking at the beast by the end of the summer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Or maybe
So
today if I hadn't smoked myself in that triple.
yeah, yeah. You just need like a, I don't know, extra shot of espresso or something. You'll get it up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what's your? I want to ask you two things before we head to questions here. So gentle
Mhm.
listeners, so whatever questions you have, we'll get there in a couple minutes. I want to hear your philosophical case for exercise and working out. I don't think we've ever covered that,
Yeah.
right? And then I want to hear Jim Madden's current generalist fitness standards. You just talked about one of Pavel's. I'd like to hear
Oh
Jim
yeah.
Madden's
Those are
set of
interesting
standards.
questions.
Give us both, and
Okay,
in whatever
yeah.
order you prefer. Mhm.
Okay, so the philosophical case for it is, this is almost a quotation from Plato's Republic, right? Is the body, like the condition of the body is, an expression of the condition of the soul, right? So I don't think there's such a thing as internal health that is not manifested externally, right? Actually, that's too strong. I mean, I think there can be cases, right? I think for the most part, right, there's a strong correlation between your internal state and your external state. There's a really cool moment in Schopenhauer's World as Will and Representation where he says, a lot of people want to reduce, say, like hunger to simply a state of the gut, right? And he says, no, I want to reduce the gut to a state of the hunger. Like rather than seeing the psychological, the spiritual as an expression, or it's like an epiphenomena of the body, he wants to see the body as an expression or a phenomena of the state of the psyche, right?
Yeah.
That is my view. Like I think
Mhm.
there's something to be said for that. And I'm not saying like you're mentally unwell if you're fat or something like that, okay? But I do
Could
think
be.
could be. Yeah, I mean, like I know I was. I know
Mhm.
why I was eating
I
the way I was.
was too,
Yeah,
man. Mhm.
right. And I do think for me
Still
it
am.
is part of my mental spiritual health,
Mhm.
right? And it's not like I'm saying I'm doing this so I can be more spiritually healthy. I think it's the spiritual health, the mental health, and the physical health are expressions of the same state of the soul. This is Plato's point, right?
Yeah.
That the well-ordered, the just soul, the soul where all the parts are in their right order and they're operating properly together, right, will be expressed in a certain kind of cognitive emotional life and a certain kind of physical life, right?
Yeah. Spot on.
And
Justice,
this
baby.
is this to me is sort of like, if we're going to be Cartesian, not going to be Cartesian, let's not be Cartesian, right?
Mhm.
Which means quit thinking that you can have a state of your mind or your soul or your spirit, right, independently from the state of your body, right?
Right. Mhm.
If indeed we're getting rid of that Cartesian framework, well then indeed we should get rid of it and see our bodies and our souls, right, as composites of you, right? And
Yes.
thereby
Right.
neglect of one is neglect of the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that. And there's
Yeah.
not an ounce of that I disagree with.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Definitely.
what are your
And by the
standards?
way, we deep dive on some of that stuff too in our discussions of Plato. So
We did. Yeah. I want to encourage people, if they did not catch the series we did on the Republic, go watch that, please. I thought that was just so much fun, and I love doing it, and we got a ton of great feedback. So, and it's just such an important classic philosophical work that I think should be in everybody's background. So we've got a whole 10-part series just walking through that wonderful work. So please, people, avail yourself of that over at Philosophy for the People if you have not yet. All right, standards. Hit us with the standards. Let's see if we live. Let's see if we live up to Dr. Jim's standards.
Okay, so standards. I think okay, I'm not hitched to like a particular modality for a lot of this stuff, right? So whether or not you're doing the deadlift, or whether or not you're doing the double kettlebell front squat, or whether or not you're doing overhead press, right? I do think one needs to have absolute, like, 1 rep kind of pushing strength or pulling strength. Like you need to have something that makes you strong, right? Okay. I think that can be reflected in a lot of ways, right? So I think if you're deadlifting, I think just being a walk around like person who could like maybe defend themselves if they had to, right? You should be able to put your body weight on a bar and deadlift it a bunch of times. So you could contend with someone about your size if you had to.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
You know what I mean? Right. I
not
think
unreasonable at all.
not unreasonable.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, you know what I mean? Now, if and also like, okay, I've been there where I've done like 3 times my body weight deadlifts, right? I don't think that's a terribly healthy thing to do to yourself either, right? So I don't know. So I think you can be strong enough well short of that sort of thing, right?
I agree.
So I do think if you weigh 180 pounds, you should be able to like deadlift several times, many times, 180 pounds, right? Or you should be able to power clean it once, right? Right. Like you could get like, so if you had to deal with another human being your size, you could do it. Right.
Right.
What that means for like kettlebell stuff. I do think like pressing half your body weight is a big deal. Once again, probably you don't need that just to be like, I could like defend myself kind of strength. But, I think any guy, should get to the point where he could press a 28 kilogram kettlebell or a 32 kilogram kettlebell.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that would be a good standard, right?
Yeah. I like that you gave a range here. That'll cover most guys.
Because it depends, like, how big are you and where are you and stuff like that. Right. But once again, I just think like that means you could probably, pick up something big off one of your kids if you had to.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Away or something from your kids. Right. I think you should be able to do some pull-ups, because this is a Joe DeFranco thing, right? Where he said that in one of the way old articles, one of the things that got me on pull-ups way back in the day.
I remember being influenced by his stuff. Jersey guy, right?
Yeah, Jersey guy. Yeah. Interesting guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he said like because he was training guys for like NFL combines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he found the best predictor of body fat percentage, like good body fat percentage, was either the guy's 40-yard dash time or how many pull-ups he could do. Because either way, you cannot be carrying a lot of extra lard to do that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think if you can do like 10 good like neck to bar pull-ups, you're probably pretty good in terms of strength.
You have to have a lot of things going right to do that, right?
You know what I mean? Just 10 good neck to bar pull-ups. Like if you want to, like, there's been times in my life where, I've really worked hard where I could like max the Marine Corps standards, stuff like that. That's great. But once just to be like a good, to be alive, like to be strong enough for your own longevity, right?
Yeah.
Which increasingly we're seeing that's part of longevity.
Yeah. I mean, think about that, right? If you're going to do 10 good neck to bar pull-ups, which I can do.
Yeah.
In case anyone was curious.
Of course,
easily. I think you should be able to do them easily.
Easily.
You can't be super fat, right? That ain't going to work. You have to have pretty good upper body strength, right? In a functional way. Good grip strength. That's important. Decent shoulder and T-spine mobility, right? So like, you gotta have a number of boxes
good abs
for that. Decent, because we want a nice like hollow body position. We want them to look like you're a gymnast ascending with grace. That's good. Good standard. Exactly. That's kind of a tough one. 10.
That's kind of a tough one. But I would go 10, but
I think it's worth pushing for that. I agree.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Right. I like 10 on that. And I like the Turkish get up too, right? Just
Yep.
it's this absolute full body thing, standard there. I like the simple and sinister, simple standard. Like really, I think anybody who works at it consistently could get to where they could do a get up with a 32 kilogram kettlebell,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? You know what I mean?
Yep.
I like that. Another thing, okay, so DeFranco had this program way back. I remember I did it when I was still, more of a meathead, right? It was what was it? It was like Strong AF or something. It was this like crazy like meathead title to it, right?
Yeah. 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 Hmm.
And he said in there, look, here's the deal, guys, because he's writing it for like washed up football players, and which is where I was, right? He's like, guys, we need to be able to like run a mile, right? So he like put in the program, like on day one, you tested your mile, and then like on the last day, you tested your mile, right? I like that. I like that you should be able to run a mile. Like you should be able to like get a decent time in the mile, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's a decent time in the mile? I think any like basically fit person should be able to get under 7 minutes in a mile,
Yes. Yeah. That's
right?
good. Hmm.
Right. You know what I mean? Now, there's can be orthopedic issues, stuff like that. I think like on an Airdyne, you should be able to do 3 miles in like 10 minutes. That's kind
Mm-hmm.
of cooking, right? But like find something like that, like get where you have some kind of like straight cardio endurance thing that you can do. Cause I think once again, there's like no excuse not to be able to do that. Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's a Paul Rourke, a fitness guy I like quite a bit. He had his own like fitness test where it was a mile run, it was max pull-ups, and it was like a 2-minute burpee test.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which I like that, right? You know what I mean? Right.
I love the 2-minute burpee test is good. I like that because it has level changes. It's functional. It's important. It's important, really important to just be
Yep.
able to get up and off the ground.
Yep. Oh,
And it's important to be able
was,
to get up and off the ground easily
yep.
and with like, I would even say if you can like the fewer limbs,
Yeah.
right, that are involved and you having to get up and off the ground is like a really good indicator of general
Yeah.
fitness. If you can get up and off the ground with just one limb, think like a rolling pistol squat or something like that. You got some things going for you. Yeah, that's cool. Mm-hmm.
No, and for him it was Marine Corps style 8-count bodybuilders.
Okay, yeah, I
So
remember that.
you squat down, you jump back to the push position, you do like a V out with your legs,
Yeah.
come
Mm-hmm.
back in, stand back up, right?
Yep.
It was 8-count, and there, I mean, 2 minutes 8-count bodybuilders is no joke.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Dad cranked out 50 good push-ups the other day. Put it on
Nice.
YouTube. Boom, boom, boom,
Nice.
boom, boom. Felt
That a
good.
boy.
Yeah,
That a
yeah,
boy.
mhm.
Right. Yeah. So those are kind of like loose standards I hold myself to. Right.
That's good. No, that's and there's a lot of range there. I like.
I
the
personally
range.
think you should be able to jog for an hour too.
Yeah, just
Like
be able
jog
to right.
or ride a bike, do something for an hour. Can you do
Mhm.
like repeated low grade, medium grade cardio for an hour? I think that's an important thing.
Right. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good, man. That's cool. And the gentle
Yeah.
listeners, be honest, guys. Where do you meet Jim's standards? Because he will
Yeah.
not hang out with you
I want
unless he will discriminate.
Yeah. Exactly.
He might like nod at you from across the street,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you're not gonna. It's not gonna share a mirror with you.
I think I would love to have like a swing standard of some sort, but I've never heard of anybody having a swing standard. Like you hear about snatch standards.
You got the
right?
100 rep snatches in 5 minutes, which
Right.
is, I probably think more like that. I actually like that. I know a lot of people have an issue with that. I don't. I think it's
What don't
fine.
they like about it? I don't mean to get you in trouble here.
No, who am I going to get in trouble with, dude? Yeah, if I've ever shut my fat mouth before. No, so the context where people usually bark about the snatch test is if it's for a coaching certification, people are like, well, this doesn't make you a good coach. And it's like, fair enough, but was that really the point of it?
But is it a sufficient condition to get the certification? No. Right?
Yeah,
necessary.
Right. But the way I've always thought about it is like, this at least tells me that you care about something, right? And because to get 100 reps with, say, a 24 kilogram for most guys, 16 kilogram for most women, like, it's not something you can just walk in and do, even if you're generally fit, right? It's something that is going to at least take a little bit of time to really learn your way around a kettlebell, get the technique down, get your conditioning up, and show that you're actually invested. So in that sense, I think it's quite appropriate. I find it to be a very reasonable standard. It's something you have to work towards, but it's something that most people can achieve with a good, intelligent approach.
They judge it like really tight technically, don't they?
They did back in the day when I did it.
So
I was the youngest person. I'm
don't do
gonna
that.
do a little brag. I was the
You were
youngest person
7
to
at the
ever
time.
pass the Russian kettlebell challenge at the time. And that was back when it was like a big hazing thing because I did it right when I
Yeah.
got to college because I got recruited by Sam and if like just to go do this thing and I did it and I crushed the snatch test too. I did it like 3 minutes 30 seconds, just boom. Just because I prepped for it, man. I
Yeah.
wanted to go in and do well. So,
Yeah.
but no, it was tight. If you didn't, I mean, if you didn't have a real good lockout,
Yeah.
it wouldn't count.
But see, I think that does like help with like coaching, right? Like, because I mean, you're being held to a highly technical standard there, and I do think the fact that you did it is going to make you less sympathetic to other people's being sloppy when you're teaching them.
I agree.
Because you're saying, look, I'm not asking you to do anything that I didn't do under a great deal of stress myself.
Yeah. No, dude. I am a big fan of finding people who not just practice what they preach, but have walked the walk. Now, I understand that there's exceptions, right? I get that, like, you know, not every coach of an Olympian has to themselves be an Olympian. That's unrealistic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But for like, you better believe that I'm not hiring a guitar instructor that can't play Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, right? I don't care how much music theory you know. Like, if you can't play the damn instrument, I'm not doing it. I'm not hiring a jujitsu coach that can't choke me out, right? It's like I'm just not doing it. I don't care how much theory. So even though there's exceptions to it, I think it's a good general rule that a good coach for me generally satisfies 3 criteria. I want to hear your thoughts on this, and then we'll go to questions. So keep it coming, guys. I see there's lots of stuff there. One is that they are consistent in what they teach, but willing to evolve in light of new evidence, right? So they're not like completely stubborn, but they're not changing their mind every 5 minutes either. That to me is a quality I look for. Somebody who's consistent, but willing, of course, to evolve when evidence demands it, right? And somebody like Pavel, like, is, I think, that type of person, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Number 2 is that they have practice and they've proven themselves to some degree at some time in the actual art when it makes sense.
It could have been back in the day. That doesn't bother me.
Exactly. It could have been 30 years ago, but they did it, right? And for some things, I would like them to still be doing it now, like music, for example, right? To me, it just seems appropriate that this is something that you could continue doing. Obviously, being a high-level Olympian is not that sort of thing. And then number 3 is that they've been able to impart and teach others consistently and repeatedly. That's really a critical part of it. So those are like the 3 criteria that I think people should look for in a coach. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree 100%. That's exactly what I would look for.
Yeah. And if any one of those are missing, it's something. It's an indicator for me, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And also I would, for me too, in any coach I would do with, I'd want to like have a sense of how they think about goals, right? Because I think there's, I think I've talked to you about this before. Like, I have a weird view about goals. I don't necessarily like goals, or like people usually call goals. Like, I'm gonna like press the beast by end of the summer. Well, hey, what if you get sick? What if you get hurt? There's all these things beyond your control, right?
Yeah.
And what I want out of a coach is someone that's going to hold me to the things that we can actually control, right? Do you see what I mean? Like, I think a lot of goal setting, I think, sets people back because they don't make the goals for things that are beyond their control, and then thereby, like, they put their loser brain on, right? You know what I mean? So, like, for me, I don't want to hear about what you're going to press by the summer. I want to hear about how many times you're going to lift.
Yeah, that's nice.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to hear about like what your place is going to be, at Master Worlds, because who knows, if 5 really, really good dudes show up, maybe you get 6th place, even though you did the best jiu-jitsu you've ever done, right? I want to know, like, how many days you're going to be in the gym and what you're going to work on, and like give yourself something quantifiable to like measure up to there. That's more in your control than the actual outcome, right?
Yeah, love it. I hope the gentle listeners have found this little fitness conversation useful. Awesome. All right, let's take some questions. Jim, grab whatever you want. There's a lot of stuff here. I love seeing this type of conversation. So let me see if we can wade through. Just take it, whatever.
I'm
going for the cheap one.
I just thought about favorite soda because
favorite soda and favorite cheat meal. Yeah.
Yeah. So my last night I had a cherry 7-Up Zero, right? Which is like the best soda in the world,
dude. So first off, I used to drink way too much cherry Coke Zero. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And that was actually helpful when like I
Yeah.
was like moving away from being Fat Pat to not Fat
Yeah.
Pat. Like
Yeah.
I'll have to say, like people talk about, diet sodas, avoid them. I don't drink diet soda anymore. But that was legit helpful for me.
Yeah.
I'm going, dude, old school Pepsi, but I need it in a glass with ice.
Yeah.
Old school Pepsi in a glass with ice. That's the way Grandma used to do it. And me and Grandma used to sit on the couch, have her Pepsi with a glass of ice. Can't beat it. On a hot day, man. A little bit hungry, can't beat it.
What was the one before that? Oh, I lost my train of thought. It was something on the soda. Oh no, the cherry Coke Zero, right? When I drink that stuff, I get some like weird astral traveling COVID thing.
You meet the gnomes and the worm.
Yeah, I'm like talking to the DMT gnomes after 2 bottles of that. So I don't know what it is, but
dude, I've always been suspicious of it because it just tastes like a little too good.
I know it tastes like
I just don't trust this. Yeah,
I love Coke Zero, both the regular Coke Zero and the cherry Coke Zero. But man, like I have a bottle of that, and then like anything like I'm on the edge. I feel like I'm gonna lose it at any second. Like I feel like I'm like Hunter S. Thompson on the way to Las Vegas, right?
Thanks for the great question, Jan. Quickly, favorite cheat meal. We won't spend. I'm a bread pudding guy, dude. If you give me bread pudding with a scuba ice cream on the side, you'll see me.
I've been so tight on my diet for like the last several years. Like my favorite cheat meal right now is sushi, where I eat the rice.
It's not a cheat.
I know, like that, but that's it, right?
Sushi's just like my healthy Friday.
Or like, on Friday nights, sometimes after we train, my wife and I will go to a pizza place that has a cauliflower crust pizza, and there's there's a few carbs in that, so I have to admit, I'm really on that. I don't really.
Somebody, Brendan said Mountain Dew Code Red. Does that still exist, man? I haven't seen that. I haven't seen Code Red.
I guarantee if I had a can of Mountain Dew Code Red, right, like I would like you'd find, like I'd be living on Venice Beach in a box inside of a week, probably, right?
You can tell this is the highbrow episode of Philosophy
exactly
today. All right, let's find something else.
So I dragged this in there, right?
No, this is good, man. We said, hey, anything is fair game. All right. Sorry, lots of stuff here. Parisa says, do we need an explanation of why God created this world instead of some other world to avoid brute facts? No. And this is going to be relevant. Stay tuned for my conversation on Mortimer Adler, because what we're going to learn is that the nature of the will is just to make efficacious any finite motives. So once you understand the nature of the will and how finite motives can impress us and include God, it just is the power of the will to make determinative or efficacious any finite motive. And once you have that, you have a perfectly adequate explanation in the realm of agent causation. So that's how you deal with that. Yeah. And Adler has a really great way of bringing this out and showing how objections against this constantly beg the question, and that you can maintain PSR and all your explanatory principles without brute facts there. So Parisa, it's a great question. That's how I would quickly address it. But stay tuned, because this is very relevant to the free will episode I want to do, where I'm going to read an essay and comment on an essay from Mortimer Adler, and he brings this point up a couple times throughout. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I think you'll dig it.
So, can I make a comment on that?
Oh, please. Yeah, dude. Of course.
As you know, because of the recklessness of my Leibnizian youth, sometimes I feel like maybe we do need an extra explanation, such that the world will have to be like perfect, right? They'd have to be the best world possible. But I was thinking about this the other day, is I wonder though, so you've got like the world exists. Okay. Now that's a fact explained by, say, like the will of God, right? Now what the questioner's asking is, well, do we need another explanation for why the world exists rather than something else? Right. Okay.
A contrastive explanation.
Yeah. But there's this legitimate question of whether or not that's like that kind of second order fact is something that needs an explanation. Right. But not just why this, but why this rather than that. Right. And certainly without appealing to like the best of all possible worlds, you've got all the this facts explained. You might not have all the this rather than that facts, but I think it's a legitimate question to ask. Do I need to explain not only like once I've explained this, do I really need to explain rather than? Right?
Yes. Right.
It could be a sufficient explanation for that. It's just simply this, right?
Right.
And
yes.
Because I do have a substantive explanation for it.
Yeah. Technically, I would say, even though you can give contrastive explanations, we can analyze things in such a way that we can just deny that there are any contrastive facts.
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
once you have an explanatory principle that ranges over facts, you don't run
Yep.
into this problem. So I think that's another perfectly good way to deal with this type of objection. But I just think it's just fundamentally right that once we understand the nature of agent causation and the nature of the will itself, we see that this objection is completely misguided. Or deeply question begging against agent causation and libertarian freedom and stuff like that. This is something that just comes up again and again and again and again. But to me, it just is like not a good objection, right? But it gets people apparently. All right, yeah. Let's see here. Jim, here's one from Irish. Maybe have you read much Chesterton? Because he wants to know of what we think of Chesterton's thoughts on Nietzsche, in particular as being not a bold or strong thinker.
Chesterton or Nietzsche?
I think he's asking our opinion on Chesterton's opinion of Nietzsche as Chesterton being critical of Nietzsche.
I've not read Chesterton on Nietzsche. Okay, so I'm a little reluctant to comment on this, but I have to think anyone who says that Nietzsche is not a profound thinker is not really paying attention, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you have to agree with him, right? But I think the man was profound. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know this in Chesterton, or at least it doesn't ring to me. And to be honest, I have not read that much Chesterton. I read Orthodoxy a while ago, and I've read a number of his essays here and there, but I'm by no means like a big Chesterton. I read his little book on Aquinas, which was an interesting, kind of more biographical volume as well.
What was Everlasting Man? I think is the only book I read.
Did you like that? Because everybody loves that book, and I'll be honest, I started it and I never finished it. I put it down. I couldn't.
I mean, I read it. I mean, I remember like my oldest kid was like bouncing on my knee when I read that book. So it's been like nearly 20 years since I read that book. But I remember at the time being very taken by it and seeing it as it's a kind of like almost like Nietzschean genealogy. It's a history, but it's a history that clearly he's spinning out of like what could be. Right? Do you see what I mean? So I think it's like there's an interesting, if I remember it right now, it's a long time ago, so I could be correct. There's a very interesting like literary form and kind of like philosophical method to the book. Right?
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I'll have to give it another whirl then, because I tried to get into it, but I couldn't. But that could just be my own fault or temperament at the time. So anyways.
So I'm noticing there's a bunch of vegan questions in here.
Take them.
But there was one I thought that we could. Okay, this one here. I think this will hit a lot of them, right? Question: how should a meat eater respond to vegan argument? It says we shouldn't eat meat because meat eating participates in unethical practices of factory farming, including insemination. I assume it's the artificial insemination I'm worried about, but we're all for natural insemination. But look, I think one should reply that, I mean, for me, I eat meat, but I'm worried about this. I do think there is some pretty terrible stuff that's going on in factory farming, and I've begun to like look into other options for me to get access to meat without participating in that. Right. And there are questions of like, material versus formal cooperation with stuff and things like that. But I do think a lot of what we do to animals in these processes is terrible. Right.
Right.
But that's, I mean, so I guess you could like make a distinction. Are you a contingent? Are you like a vegan just simply after the fact, just given because this is how things go and it's the only ethical way I can go? Or do you think in principle there's something wrong with eating animals, right? Do you see what I mean? I think there's like two brands
of course,
people,
of course, right? Yeah.
And the one that says, you just shouldn't eat anything alive, then what you've done, interestingly, is you've held humans to a moral standard in the protection of living things that no other living thing is held to, right? Like everything in nature like lives by the consumption of other living things, right? At some level, or competition with. Do you see what I mean? So I have a hard time like seeing humans being exempt from that order of nature, right? Okay. But I think if you're worried about, my engagement in what seem to be inhumane farming practices, things like that, I think that's a perfectly legitimate worry and one I share. Right.
Yeah, I would. So I guess there's different arguments for veganism. One are these moral type of concerns. On a basic level, I don't think that there's any moral issue with eating meat for vegans at all. Right. I think there's a perfectly good natural law case for that. I think there can be legitimate moral objections to certain practices, like Jim said, and that's a case-by-case basis. However,
Yep.
I would say there's also overriding circumstances where the welfare interests of the moral communities might actually justify some of it in certain circumstances, right? So it's highly contextual. But in general, yeah, other things equal, if there are no outweighing moral welfare interests, yes. And I'll say personally, like, look, we get pretty much all of our meat locally from the Happy Chicken, Happy Cow farm, stuff like that, because I do care about this stuff. Scientifically, veganism doesn't actually turn out nearly as good as people think it does in the literature. I mean, there was a systematic review I read not too recently at Lincoln where vegetarianism, veganism were more associated again with nutritional deficiencies, anxiety, depression, stuff like that. So this was a good systematic review of the literature of veganism from a nutritional standpoint. I'm going to link it right now. I just went and dug it up. I found that interesting. And of course, there's debates here of correlation and causation. I think there's a decent case to be made that it is causative in many instances. Can veganism be healthy? I think it can be with the right approach and the right work and supplementation, but it's definitely not the cure-all treatment to what ails fat America, right? What we know scientifically about most diets is they tend to come out in the wash once you control for calories. This is as true for veganism as it is other things as well. So if we're just trying to be serious scientifically about health and stuff like that, I do not think veganism shows clear advantages, and I think there's evidence that it actually has distinct disadvantages in the actual scientific literature.
And I'll say this too is, this is part of your point is, okay, better vegan than the standard American diet.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, better vegan than the Cheeto, right? Better vegan, better vegan than Coke Zero, probably. Right?
Sure. Right.
But yeah, you know what I mean? And I think, my view on diet is, I think the key is the ease of compliance, right? And I find really, really cut to the bone, like food type restriction diets, in my experience, are easy to comply with, right? So if you just don't eat animal products, you get like an easy decision every time you open the menu, right? If there's an animal product in it, don't eat it, right?
Right.
Which means you're going to pass up a lot of feeding opportunities, which means probably in the calorie run, you're going to eat less, right?
Right.
And so if you're a keto warrior like I am, right? You open the menu, if there's carbohydrate, in there, or non-fibrous carbohydrate, right? You're just passing it up, which means, 2/3, 3/4 of the menu at Applebee's is not available to you now, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to pass up a lot of opportunities you have.
You're not eating good in the neighborhood, not tonight.
Not eating good. Yeah, exactly. And so I just think like the key is to get a diet that actually, I know this is not the cool thing to say, right? But it's to get a diet that deeply restricts your options and stick to it, so you pass up opportunities to stuff your face. Yeah.
Right. Deadly has a good point here. He's right. Americans need to primarily reduce its calorie intake. That's right. I mean, that's definitely true, right? And this is what we see again, as Jim was just saying in the studies, that once you really control for calories, most of this stuff comes out in the wash. Now, I say most of it, not all of it, because if we're being honest, there are some approaches that in the literature that do seem to have certain advantages, which I've tried to highlight before, like strategic meal replacements and stuff like that. But they tend to have advantages because they help people adhere to the calorie restrictions in certain ways. And protein seems to be important. You're getting protein up, stuff like that tends to be helpful. But even intermittent fasting, right? Why does intermittent fasting primarily work? Well, primarily because calorie restriction. Now, there is some interesting evidence that it might have some other additional health benefits as well, but primarily for weight loss, again, it comes down to these notions of calorie restriction. So it's not surprising when somebody goes from Cheetos and Coke Zero and Arby's. By the way, Arby's gotten into some trouble lately. Don't go to Arby's.
Really?
Somebody was peeing in the milkshakes again, Jim. This is so.
I mean, I'm kind of surprised right now if there isn't a fast food restaurant somewhere in North America where someone is pissing into some sort of beverage dispenser.
This is the world we're living in, man.
Yeah, I mean, I would just assume. I mean, right? Is anyone surprised that
somebody in Arby's was micturating into the milkshake?
Some disgruntled pothead working at Arby's, took a piss in the fryer on his way out the door on the last day. I mean, I'm sorry.
So if you needed another reason not to go to Arby's, there you go.
As if, who thought it was a good idea to go to Arby's in the first place?
Like I said, this is the highbrow pinky raising episode. The point I was trying to make
Ducks and ponds, man.
what I was trying to make is it's not surprising that somebody like feels super healthy after going from Arby's to vegan, because like this, you're getting so much trash and so many calories out of your diet, right?
Exactly.
It's going to be the same thing if you go from Arby's to Mediterranean or Arby's to pescatarian, right?
So, exactly, right?
It's just...
No, that's my view on all that. It's like, yeah, when you go for me, it was, from the tater tot chili thing at Sonic, right, to no carbs. Guess what? Like you're gonna lose weight, right? Yeah.
Oh man, Arby's, dude, Arby's used to be my stop, man. Arby's,
Arby's, 5 for $5?
Yeah. Oh man,
when I was in college, I was grocery shopping.
The Big Montana, dude. Remember that? Like that was the thing they had to take off the menu because it like wasn't legal. It had so many calories, but like they'd still let you order it, right? And like you knew you were an insider at Arby's if you could, if you knew what the Big Montana was.
Yeah. Right.
Oh man.
Yeah. No, I think it'd be great if like the next time we came on, like we had an Arby's ad.
That's what trashing them.
No PR is bad PR.
And I still like every time, because I drive by Arby's, it's on the way to the grocery store. So every time I still feel this like slight tingle of temptation. Just like, just turn the wheel. Let's go get the curly fries and milkshake. Can't get the milkshake now anymore. All right, well, let's find another question for this show. It's completely derailed. Yeah. All right, so
let's see here.
We're having too much fun on Freaky Friday. Yeah.
There was.
Real quick, I'll just highlight this comment while you find another one, Jim. Callum says, Pat, would you be interested in getting Francis Feingold on? Yes, I would love to get Dr. Feingold on. In his dissertation, he argues multiple acts of will are compatible with simplicity, even helps to bridge the gap with palinism. So yeah, I'm actually a big fan of Dr. Feingold's work. His work on the whole nature grace thing is, considered by many to be like the work everybody must read on that debate right now. But he also has a really excellent article in Thomism and Predestination that I think sort of in a really good way sort of summarizes Maritain view broadly. So the answer to your question is yes, I would love to have Dr. Feingold on, and I hope that we can make that happen soon. Yeah. Have you read much of his work at all, Jim?
I have not, actually. I have read some. To this listener, how should I deal with my parents' conflicts? Please help me. I'm feeling to kill myself. Call someone now. Call someone right now who can help you. Call a professional. Call a hotline. Please call someone right now. Right.
Yeah. Please do no kidding,
ask
man.
You to do that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, and as far as dealing with your parents' conflicts, get a good marriage and family therapist and get some help.
It's the context here that like fighting parents,
that's what I take it to be.
Or really tough stuff. I mean, I grew up in a very broken home. My parents divorced, but it was after years and years of them just like incessantly screaming at each other and threatening all sorts of horrendous things and stuff like that. So yeah, get some help, my friend, and God bless you. We'll say some prayers for you. Right. Mm-hmm.
All right, another one from Deadly Havoc. Why do humans have capacity for psychedelic experience from substances naturally occurring? I mean, I'm open to maybe those substances, are there for good reasons and have something to teach humanity, and maybe have taught humanity something and played roles in evolution, all that. I think those are all interesting empirical questions that are, consistent with a lot of worldviews, right? But also, you have to keep in mind too, is we have receptors for opiates too, right? I mean, that they mimic things that go on inside our body naturally, right? So it doesn't, just because we have receptors for something doesn't necessarily mean it's good for us. Do you see that? Or it's always good for us, or that it's easy to moderate or something like that, right? I mean, we know that, like, I think the human body does create DMT, but that doesn't mean like blasting yourself with necessarily a good idea, right? But I'm perfectly open to all the sorts of things that are being discovered about these substances, that maybe there's something interesting and important going on here with the history of humanity and these substances, right? But just because we have receptors, though, I don't think draws any premise from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was big into reading about this stuff many years ago, DMT, and I had to tell you, man, did you ever read Terence McKenna's stuff?
Oh gosh, yeah.
He's still one of the funniest people. I love
him. I had my students in class this semester read an essay on that Terence McKenna wrote about UFOs and psychedelics and like Nietzsche, right? I think it was too much for the little people. I think I pushed him
Dude,
Yeah.
he's not only just an interesting and fascinating guy. He is an unintentional comic genius. Like few
Yeah.
people make me laugh as much as he does. After you just let that man talk for 10 minutes, you're in stitches
Yeah.
almost every time, right? Anyways, good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a few more here. This has been a fun one as always. Here's the one for you, Jim. John the Catholic wants to know, when will Jim's new book on nihilism be available for pre-order?
Okay, so I think that the new book should be out sometime this year. It's none of it's official yet, but people have it who are interested in it, so I'm pretty reasonably certain it's going to be out sometime this year. But I'll say this is, if you want some, some of me on nihilism, there's lectures that I have on Gumroad, that are not directly from the book, but they're like material that's parallel to the book that I didn't bring in there. There are about 100 pages of read lectures there, and well, jdmadden.com, go to the philosophy section, you'll find a link, and it's whatever pay what you want, 0 to infinity, for that. So go for it. And the book itself should be available, sometime this year.
I have to, because I'm a video game nerd. Callum says, don't mention Halo, another legend destroyed by TV. So I loved that game growing up, and I played more hours of it than I'm proud to admit. And just out of sheer curiosity, I did watch that first free episode of the show on it, and it was awful. It was so awful. So I feel your pain there. It's one of those like video games that like you think could make for such a cool story and show, and then of course they just absolutely butchered it. So yeah, very sad. All right, let's get here. Callum says, did you know that Gavin has an MMA fight coming up? I think I heard about that a while ago, but I haven't followed up with him.
Excellent.
On that. Yeah,
good for Gavin.
Yeah, the dude's been training hard, man. Gavin's he's a serious man in all things that he does.
That a boy. I'm with him on that. Let's see. I always want to go back to some of the earlier ones, make sure we didn't skip anybody.
I know. Sorry for the delay here, guys. There's a lot of stuff here, and just kind of wading through it. But that's good. Keep the conversation going. This is awesome. Ooh,
this is
trying
an interesting
to pit
question.
us against each other, Jim. Alfonso wants to know, what are the biggest differences between you and Dr. Jim's philosophical positions? Yeah, let's explore this. What do you
That's
think?
interesting. Yeah, so someone wants to sow the seeds of discord.
Right, yeah.
I can only assume this is really a troll from a competitor.
Trying to break the band up. I see.
Break the band up.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I've been moved by you on a number of considerations of how I thought about things. I'm trying to think outright. I'm probably more aggressive than you are in certain positions, at least, even if we don't agree.
There's temperamental differences, certainly.
There's temperamental differences.
I mean, I think this is fair to say that you're more optimistic about the prospects of natural theology than I am.
This is true. Yeah.
Not that I'm entirely pessimistic about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think we have different assessments of the role of natural theology and things, right?
Right.
And that probably is a sign of a greater pessimism, but not pessimism as such on my part. On that side. I think that's something.
That's something that's definitely come out, right?
Yeah. I think in general, just I think we have different. I don't know. We may have moved each other kind of closer on some of this stuff, but like at least initially, I think we had different attitudes toward the role, or like the role and the evidentiary strength of like the apologetic cases for Christianity.
Yes. Right. And I think we still differ a bit on that. I think that there's. I probably think that there's more apologetic force from the historical facts using abductive methodology than you do. I probably still.
I think we do differ on that. Right.
Yep.
Right. And once again, that's not to say that like you're committed to an overly strong or I'm committed to an overly weak assessment or something like that. It's just that I think we do have different views in the assessment, but I also think we have different views in like how important that is too.
Right. And and how we prioritize certain methodology as well. Yeah. Right. And I want to, and that's true. Cause and again, I'm still thinking about when we did that episode on Easter, I'm still thinking about the way you presented it. Cause that was a lot of times you just give me new ways of thinking about things, which is always really cool. And then I reassess. And I've always been very clear that one of the primary motivations for Christianity and Catholicism for me is background philosophy. Right. Yeah. And then that becomes a sort of um, a pump, if you
Yeah.
will, right? For how the certain data is interpreted and
Yeah.
it's right. So it is philosophy has always done a lot of work for me. I think if you just try to make a purely historical case, am I as strong as some people on that issue? Like that, I know we've mentioned the McGrew's work before numerous times. I don't know. Like, I mean, every time I read the McGrews, I do come out feeling like they've made a really, really strong case, but then I don't find myself ever making that case, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
You know?
You
So,
know,
and that says
yeah.
something about your disposition towards something, right?
I think also there's this thing. So I'm what? How old are you, Pat? You're 30,
30, dude, I will be 33 this year, my friend.
33. Okay, so
Year
I'll
of
be
the Lord.
49 this year. So
Mhm,
I'm 15ish years older and like a cradle Catholic, right?
mhm,
You're 15 years younger and a convert, right?
mhm.
And so these are like different, like we're gonna have different relationships to things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying one's normative for the other, right?
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? But I'm gonna have like I do have like a lazy, complacent cradle Catholic thing going on, right? You know what I mean? And you have the enthusiasm of a convert, right? Do you
Right,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
mhm.
And these I think these are complementary, right?
They are,
You know
and
what I mean? Yeah.
I love that we're always willing to disagree with each other,
Oh
right?
hell yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
always like Jim, and this is something I told you before. Like Jim doesn't let the bullshit fly, right? For anybody, right?
right,
Even when we bring guests on, and I know
yeah,
if we bring a guest on, it's not
yeah,
that guest could well be in for it,
yeah,
whether they know it or not.
yeah, yeah.
But it's good. I mean, you've
Grown
given me
ass man.
tons of new ways to think about
Yeah,
things, and I mean, you've shifted me. You definitely shifted me on like Plato and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Now, that's not
for
even
sure.
necessarily like a disagreement. It's just like, oh, I just never even thought of it that way
Yeah,
before, right?
yeah,
Type of stuff.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
like
in
we're broadly very similar,
yeah.
but we do look at things differently.
And
Definitely, yeah,
I'm probably like frustratingly hard to disagree with because I'm willing to yield and like my issues as you can see my views are on the move
yeah,
and I'm not about like commitment to views. I'm about like figuring stuff out. And so,
right,
you know what I mean? So a lot of times I'm like I explore stuff, but I'll explore stuff for like 5 years.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And I'll
yeah.
wear it and I'll put it on and I'll wear it and you know what I mean?
Yep. And there's,
But I, yeah.
there's a few things that I think like, and I think that's good for everyone to do. Like, take a few things and just try and like grind them to a pulp intellectually. Like, try and figure
Yeah.
at least a few things out really well.
Yeah.
But there's so many things that I'm just like, I'm either totally agnostic on, or I just have like a very weak leaning. You know, like that
Yeah.
whole corruptionism, survivalism thing we just did. Like,
Yeah.
I just haven't really spent whole lot of time in on that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and by the way, people have asked me to have a survivalist on to represent the other side. I am gonna work on that. Gonna try.
I
I
think
have it. I
Brower.
have it.
Let's see if we can get Brower this summer. Because I think he's a
That
survivalist. And
that'd be
yeah,
great because I've invited Dr. Oderberg on. He's graciously declined. Very busy man, so
yeah,
he's out. I would love to have a conversation with him, but I don't think that's going to happen. So Brower would be sweet if we could get him.
yeah.
Mhm.
I'll contact Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Ryan says Pat could pass for 25 or 40. Do I have that look, Jim? Because some people have that look where it's like, yeah, they could either be like super young or kind of old. And not really.
Yeah. No,
Does
I
it depend
think.
if I shave?
I think I would guess you in your early 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. I don't think I have that look. Who has that look? Like Dennis Quaid has that look. Like there was a time
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah.
like, is Dennis Quaid 22 or is he 47? I cannot
Yeah.
tell. Right.
Yeah. My son Brendan is 16, and man, sometimes I'm like, that guy looks like he's 35. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. Let's take one or two more here, Jim. Why don't you
Sure.
find one and I'll take
Let's
one
see
here. I'll
here.
take a fitness one here since we've.
Cool.
Indian says the kettlebell press versus dumbbell press. Is there much discrepancies between them? I think it's fine to press with dumbbells. I certainly don't have an issue with that. I think dumbbell press is cool. Nice thing about the kettlebell press is it's obviously I think it's going to help with shoulder stability and the fact that you can just rest the weight on your forearm. I think has certain mechanical advantages. It's also flows really well with cleans, and I think the clean and press is an excellent combination. And other things equal, I always kind of like to do a clean with a press, not just because it's more of a full body exercise, but I think it loads the press in an important way. So I generally prefer kettlebells for military pressing, but I know but I have no issue
You know,
with dumbbell pressing at all. In
I
fact,
got
I do most of my horizontal pressing with dumbbells. I don't do much at all horizontal pressing with kettlebells.
anytime I've done horizontal pressing with kettlebells, although I will do floor pressing with them now, but it is kind of hard on the wrist thing, you know, like
Yes, yeah, it
not
can,
like
especially when you
impact,
start
but just like
really pushing
yeah,
the weight.
yeah.
Yeah, uh-huh.
But I started military pressing with kettlebells. Like I got into barbell military pressing after I got into like military pressing kettlebells. The first real serious overhead pressing I did was with kettlebells, and I've never done any kind of serious overhead pressing with a dumbbell.
Yeah,
Right?
interesting.
And it seems to me anytime I've just played around with, like I've done it with like fitness circuits, but never heavy with a
Yeah.
dumbbell. Right? It
Mhm.
just seems anytime like when you're used to pressing the kettlebell does that thing where you can kind of leverage back against it,
Right.
right? And then when I try to press the dumbbell now, it feels like this like wooey sloppy mess.
Yeah, that's
But
yeah,
I feel
it's
locked in tight with the
it
kettlebell.
is more difficult to stabilize, I think, in a not a good way, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh. And, the other thing, because you brought up barbells, that wasn't part of the question, but that's important too. Barbell press is great because you can load a lot, but sometimes it's, with the kettlebell, you have your hands are independent, right? So you can kind of you should be trying to externally rotate as you press, right? So you should
yeah.
be trying to turn that sort of the armpit forward, right? Which even if your hands are locked on a barbell, you can still apply that pressure. Just like when you're bench pressing, the idea is you should be trying to bend the bar in half, right?
Yep.
And trying to get that external rotation. It's not only stronger, but it tends to be a better mechanical position for the shoulders as well. Barbell press can sometimes compromise people with various leans and stuff and can start to bother the low back.
Yeah.
So if that's an issue for you,
Yep.
then I suggest try out the kettlebell press and see if that doesn't give you a little
Barbell
more.
pressing never felt good in my low back.
Yeah.
Never did.
Because you have to get out of the way of the bar, but you don't have that issue with the kettlebell. Right. Uh-huh. All right, let's finish with this one from our good friend, writer John Buck. Hear that? You're a good friend now, John.
Yeah. A friend of the show. Good, always good to hear from John. So John asked, do you guys think that Aristotle's ethics reduces normativity to natural facts about flourishing, or that normativity for him is irreducibly laden within our biology? Yes, but I think those are all good things. right. Yeah, I do think Aristotle sees normativity right entirely in terms of natural facts about human flourishing.
Right. To
Yep.
understand the natural facts about something would be to understand
It's for yeah.
It's directed.
I think for Aristotle, there are no natural facts about anything that have bearing on flourishing in either direction that are not. There are no normative facts for Aristotle, right? That don't have bearing on flourishing for either the object of activity or the actor, right? I mean, I just think for him that is the ground of normativity, right? Or that normativity for him is irreducibly laden within our biology. I mean, once again, I think it is for Aristotle, normativity for humans is irreducibly laden within our biology. It is. I think for him, normative facts about us are biological facts, right? They have to understand, though, he thinks of biology very differently from the way we do. Okay. And I don't just mean because of like the differences, like the scientific discoveries and things like that, or even like Darwinian stuff. What I mean is, for Aristotle, there isn't this like subject-object divide, right? Okay, like there isn't this like you've got this person and you've got a body and they're externally related and all that, right? Like that the body is a subjectivized entity in many ways for Aristotle or for any Greek. Do you see that? And so I think when we say things like he sees normativity as a biological thing, right? Or he reduces the normativity to natural facts about us biologically, that sounds threatening to normativity in a way to us that it does not, if you understand how Aristotle thinks about the natural world, right? And our relationship to it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let me just take a lot of these came in quickly that I just want to just highlight. So Pope Stealth says, how do you feel about idealistic occasionalist types like Bruce Gordon? I like a lot of Bruce Gordon's work. There's a volume that Bruce Gordon contributed to. It's one of those like 3-4 view volumes. A lot of those books are kind of hit and miss. I thought that one was good. I thought Bruce Gordon's presentation in there, he's kind of going back and forth with Michael Roos, was really interesting. I think one of the best responses to those types of positions is actually from John Haldane. You got to read Haldane's arguments against idealism and Berkeley various forms of Berkeleyanism, because I think Haldane just nails it. I think he's a sort of hidden gem in that type of debate, pushing back against idealism. So that's what I would say is somebody to check out after that. But in general, I like Bruce Gooden's work. I'd like to have him on the show at some point. John says, what should I read to get started on Oderberg? Yeah, read Real Essentialism. And then also his Metaphysics of Good and Evil, I thought was just magisterial. I can't recommend it enough. Yeah.
I know a lot of people really admire. I think he had a 2-volume thing on normative ethics.
Yeah, his ethical books. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Yeah, and you can get a lot of his published stuff, his articles anyways, on his website, or you can at least email him for them as well. And he's just got a lot of really good stuff. So I would commend that. Jim, what do you got coming up? What do you want to announce before we go?
There's one more here I want to hit.
Sure.
Do you mind real
quick? Hit it. Yeah, of course.
Do you think Theodore Kaczynski's Unabomber works are of any value in application in industrial society and its consequences? I'll say this. I have not read any of Kaczynski's stuff, but I just put some on my Amazon list the other day. So I am planning actually to read some of this guy's stuff. Now it might just be crazy stuff, okay, but I am open to seeing what's in some of these works. So just want to
groovy. Tell people about your nihilism course and anything else you want to mention.
As always, the nihilism course is available for whatever you think it's worth. I'm perfectly comfortable if you want to do a just take it for free and come back and give a gratuity. That's fine. I think maybe this week I should have the new Heidegger course on the question concerning technology up. Right?
Sweet.
Other than that, just getting through graduation with my 2 seniors in high school, and we'll see how the summer develops from there.
Yeah, awesome, man. So I will let me make the petitions again. If you like what we're doing here on the channel, and I know I'm actually streaming on both channels today. So if you're not yet subscribed to Philosophy for the People and you like the philosophy content, please head over to Philosophy for the People and subscribe there, because Jim and I are cooking up a bunch of crazy stuff over there all the time. It's just crazy. And all free. But if you like what we're doing, you want to give a little tip. We have courses and studies on Gumroad. I'll link them in the comments afterwards, and they're pay what you want. So for mine, I tried to make them free at first, but I actually had too much content that Gumroad said I had to charge at least $1. So you have to give me at least $1. I don't think you have to give Jim technically anything. But if you want to, you can pay what you want. So if you think it's worth $14 million, if you pay us $14 million, we'll do more than just nod at you from across the street.
Yes. Right? Yeah. Heads up though, because I will have to talk to the tax man about that.
Yeah, you'll give us a little heads up, but I'm not going to turn you down. Or maybe you want to test it out for $1 or for free, and then if you really enjoy it, you want to come back and tip more, you can certainly do that. But we appreciate your support, whether it's monetary or whether it's just liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing, anything you guys can do to help support and grow the channel. We really do appreciate it. So thank you all for being here, and we will catch you guys next week. Peace.